first, we just gotta say 6. 6.
Was it 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock. Ooh, I gotta go.
And I ain't talking Liverpool. I ain't talking Champions League. 6 times world champion, Lewis Hamilton. You know how amazing that is?
Not
Because,
very. The record
no.
stands at 7. The record stands at 7.
Listen, you know how amazing that is? Because the reality is, in our lifetime, we've only ever said that about one person. And how old were we when we said that? What? 10? 11? What? Maybe you were about 20 by then. I don't know. but 6 times. That's actually, it's amazing. It's actually amazing. Of course, yes, Lewis Hamilton, 2019 Drivers' World Champion F1. And he moves outright second behind Michael Schumacher in the all-time list. And there's so many other records that he's either broken or hasn't, or was close to breaking. Number of race wins, poles, etc., etc. I'm not even going to go into whether he's the greatest or not. We did that about a year, I think when he won his 5th. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he won his 5th. And, you know, we may come back in a year or two. Well, at least 2 years if he's actually broken that record. Maybe 1 year before he matches it. But
guess we'll be coming back to that then.
But in terms of the season, how do you rate Lewis Hamilton's season? That's the first question.
I mean, is it good as it was ever going to get? You won the championship. What's the more to say?
It could have been. I mean, it could have been better. And I'm not talking about that. Also, the outcome is what it is, isn't it? But you win certain races. You got competitors. Some seasons are easier or harder than others.
It was all too easy for him. Like, I don't think Hamilton was ever at his best throughout the championship. Like, once he got started and he pulled away and he got such a gap, he's basically toying with the pack. He might say, oh, he didn't qualify in pole, 3rd or 4th or whatever. It's not a problem for him. He's got such a gap. Like, it's like when Man City won the title with Pep and they were like 18 points ahead of Man United. Like, everything was just a stroll in the park for them. Like, they wouldn't take anything seriously. It's the same for Lewis Hamilton. I just feel like he wasn't pushed. Maybe next year might be a different story.
Well, okay, start of the season. I think maybe about 3-4 races. I don't think he won the first 3. I could be wrong though, but I feel like he didn't win in the first 3, or he only won 1 out of the first 3 because Bottas obviously started the season very, very well. So would you agree to say he wasn't pushed this season, Ron? Or
as an overall, arguably he's his championship he's ever won.
Really?
Arguably.
Really?
I mean, arguably, because yes, there were stages where Bottas started quite well, but I think it was Mercedes as a team just blew the track out of the water, and by 6. The constructor championship was already done by race 6, 7 already. Looking at it, I think it was already done. So I think as a team they started well, and then after when it gets to that stage, it's then who's going to win it out of me and you basically from Lewis and Bottas' point of view, and then Lewis just kind of just run through it by halfway point. It's pretty much done for him. And then he's coasting. He could have won his title a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? But he didn't need to push the car as hard as he would have done in the previous years when it was a lot much more tighter. Because I feel like he would have known by then. Just got to do my job. As long as the car don't fail me, and I finish complete the races, I'm going to win his title eventually. So just a matter of if rather than when. So. Has he? I don't know. It's been maybe 1 or 2 other times where he's kind of got to that stage, at the halfway stage, where he's pretty much already done. But I mean, in terms of competition, I just don't feel like, well, Ferrari came with anything for competition wise in terms of performance. Okay, everyone could talk the talk at the start of the season, but in terms of performance, didn't really come with anything. Red Bull wasn't really there.
You say they ain't come with anything. Granted, yeah, they lost the championship. Ferrari, that is. But especially actually, start of the season, they had a car that was quick enough to challenge Mercedes. Obviously, then they had some technical issues, like the clerk. I think it was winning could be Bahrain, where he was leading it, and then his car, the telemetry just went out and he dropped back to third. And then after the summer break, it was a different Ferrari. It was a completely different Ferrari. I think they won like 4 or 5 poles in a row. Hamilton couldn't get close.
So after the title lost, they start playing.
He was coasting, didn't it?
As I said,
He didn't need to try.
I
He can surrender pole.
I think they.
For him.
It's like maybe at the halfway point they managed to sort of sort some stuff out, the problems that they were having before, potentially, because as you said, they just it was like the car was just constantly failing, whether it in terms of the completely falling out or just something that would happen during the race and it's starting to fall back, and stuff that wasn't happening to Mercedes was happening to Ferrari. Now maybe they were banking on Mercedes to having the same problem to start the season, and it just didn't happen for them. But as you said, made some changes, and they've been brilliant through qualifying. But you still get the poles, and you still couldn't even wrap up all the wins. You know what I mean? You put yourself in a great position. Yeah, get a 1-2 or get a top 3 finish, and come the end of the race, you look up and Hamilton's top. It's like, but how did you get from here to here? How did we get from there to here? It's like they have no. I think I mentioned this before. The game management for Ferrari just seems to just not be at the level where Mercedes is. It's like they predict a certain thing and it just goes completely wrong, and then panic station throughout the race. Let's pit now. Let's not. The drivers disagree with the constructors, and it's just like. There's no. You wonder what the tactics was at the start of the race, and are you just panicking because it's all going wrong? I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, I had that. I think he's had an easier season. I think the year before, was it the year before Bottas won it, or his first Mercedes win, 1 to 2. Well, I would say. Yeah, that was an easier championship. But
which one? What number?
It would have been his second or third.
Okay.
His second or third championship. His first or second at Mercedes. Obviously because the Rosberg year that he won it was like last year you favoured Hamilton. Now I'm not taking no nothing in it, and then it all kind of just the massive fallout between on track, and you crashing each other and everything. Because Rosberg was so frustrated the year before. Yeah. Whereas this year, it was a case of we know. I mean, Mercedes played it well because it's like we're not gonna pick like driver number 1 and number 2, go out and race, but they know that Hamilton is the better driver. So as long as he said the car don't fall apart or anything like that, he's gonna put himself in position. Either where he's clear of Bottas, so then by default we have to favour him for we to win the championship. Yeah. Or as it turned out to be, Mercedes was so clear that it didn't really matter to them who won because it's going to be one or the other. So they played it very well. Different to Ferrari, who made it clear at the start that who their number 1 driver was, and then that created its own issues throughout the season. And I guess maybe near the end it started rectifying itself. Where they kind of just said, well, you know what, just go out and race, innit? Yeah. Do your thing. Or the drivers took that into their own hands. But, yeah, I think, for me, it's been a good season as a whole. I think the fact that Ferrari did come back into it in the second half, I was never convinced that, they're going to come back and win it, I guess. And you're not convinced that Bottas is going to overtake Hamilton because he hasn't got that pedigree, that experience. If not Verstappen, if a Vettel was in that position, you might be a bit, Vettel, full-time champion.
Don't know.
You might think maybe he can close the gap, but you never felt Bottas was going to have that consistency to close that gap to Hamilton. So it was really about him finishing the races. Obviously, there's 2 races left to go: Brazil and Abu Dhabi. But who's been your driver this season?
David's not. Gosling.
Oh God,
Dropped.
dropped. Man got cut half season. And Albon, who obviously started the season the Tour also, we've got 2 more races to go, and he's already passed Gasly in the Drivers' Championship. That shows how bad Gasly was doing in the Red Bull.
It was trash.
It was terrible.
And you had him in your team.
I did. Because he's in the
He's still my captain.
he's in the Red Bull. Red Bull are the 3rd best constructor in the thing. Like you shouldn't even have to be. I'm not F1 driver in it. But if you get a car on the track as a Red Bull, you have to finish 6th. That's just by default. Now I don't care how many seconds you are behind Verstappen. That was one of his biggest points because he just couldn't. Like he was so far behind. But finish 6th. That's the bare minimum, and he couldn't even do that. But I'll say for me, I'm gonna go Leclerc.
I was thinking.
I'm gonna go Leclerc. I'm tempted to go Verstappen, but I guess the fact that he's been in F1 for this must be his 3rd year now. Maybe because I think he started when he was 18. I'm sure he's about 21.
Yeah.
So I think this must be his 3rd year now. And I mean, I'm not going to use that against him because he's still only 21, which is the same age as Leclerc, and he can only do so much in a car that on 90% of the racetracks is inferior to both Ferrari and Red Bull. But he's closing in on, or he is 3rd in the championship.
Yeah.
Is he 3rd?
Leclerc's 3rd.
Leclerc 3rd, but Verstappen's. Verstappen must be close. Is what I'm saying. I'm saying.
Yeah, they're sort of. It's 3rd. Yeah.
So for him to be challenging for top 3 in a Red Bull shows how good he has done, Verstappen. But it being his 1st season at Ferrari, I have to give it to Leclerc because I think there's been races that he should have won where he didn't win for a fault not of his own, whether it's the car or the strategy, etc., etc. He probably should have more points. Just forget the car blowing up because that's a part of F1. But if it wasn't for the strategy, he probably would have more points than he has already. So to come to Ferrari as a 2nd driver at the beginning and to end the season pretty much on par with in terms of how you're respected in your own paddock or how you're seen next to your rival, 4-time champion. I think that in itself, for me, I will give the season as the driver of the season to Leclerc.
I'm pretty much the same. The fact that like I said, start of the season, Vettel was #1 driver. It was clear and obvious that he was #1 driver, and he's bullied him out of that seat. And I'm not saying that he is now the #1 driver, but you're not going to say Vettel is the #1 driver. It's not going to be, we're going to give all the benefits towards Vettel. So how his situation started at the start of the season is different to how it ended. And then going into next season, hopefully it continues to be the same. Whereas Verstappen, although he had a good season, and like you said, points-wise, he's close with Leclerc, but he was with Gasly start of the season. He had no competition. He literally had Red Bull, which literally was like, we have one racer, give him everything. Yeah. So he was able to thrive off and benefit from having absolutely everything and no downfalls. Whereas Leclerc, he had car issues. He had to fight with Vettel, team orders and strategies, etc. And he still had an outstanding season for. So for me, it has to be Leclerc.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. I'm probably actually going to go give it to Lewis, to be fair.
Okay.
I think, as you said, you have to. If you look at it from the start of the season, where we're talking Ferrari saying that they're back, you've got Bottas, who is going to be eager to now challenge Lewis for the title, and maybe feels like he's in a position where he could be challenging for the title. He's won 5, so the pressure's off. Not that he has to win another one, but I still feel like he done it in a professional manner, and as I said, to make this for what I feel is maybe his easiest year is something to be given credit for. Do you know what I mean? Like to ease with, so people like Vettel get to a stage where you win 4 and then you drop off in terms of challenging for titles, where he kept the consistency going. Bottas, as you said, had a great start. Looked like at one stage it was going to be a race for the title between them two, and then blew him out of the water really. And Bottas just playing catch up for the whole season. So, and also I think with Bottas, I feel like his experience with Rosberg has helped him, because I feel like if you go about it as rivals, the chances are it's going to be to your downfall in terms of your points towards the end of the season. Whereas if you go about it as teammates, and any time any questions go to Lewis, it's always like the straight face. He's my teammate. It's for the team. It's for the team. The amount of times this man says it's for the team. It's for Mercedes. We did it for the team. Yeah. Bottas win. Great. It's for the team.
It's a
different mindset. Because Rosberg, you could, even if he said it, his face was vexed. Like, no, I did not let him through. You knew what was going to. Yeah. With Bottas, it's just like, knowing that next week I'm having him. Like I'm having him, and it's gonna be me. It's gonna be me. It's gonna be me. And I feel like he never let that get in his way.
But I feel it's because, similar to what I said, like I never felt that, like Bottas ain't really a title challenger in that respect. Granted, he's taken it to two races to the end, isn't it? But it's like Hamilton probably himself thought, I'm not even worried about that, because once I get it together, he can't match me at all.
And then I feel like he probably felt that with Rosberg at one stage.
I don't know. I think the way that he was fighting Rosberg in that season, it was partly out of fear in the sense that, remember, they've grown up racing together, so he knows that this guy can race quick. So I can't give him an edge. Where I think with Bottas, he's probably thinking, I'll give you a little head sliding, and it doesn't matter anyway. Goes, ain't no way. And it proved that Bottas, was it the race in the rain? When the man crashed out with like 1 lap to go, because Hamilton was out of the points, I think, at that stage. In the end, I think from him crashing out, Hamilton ended back at the point and actually extended his lead to Bottas. It's those kind of things where Bottas, because last season Bottas came behind Vettel, which is like inexcusable in a Mercedes. We win the championship, we win the drivers' championship and the constructors, and you come second. And inexcusable, and his job was on the line. His job, his job was on the line. So I think Hamilton always felt that he probably had his number in that regard. Just to say, Mason Greenwood has scored for Manchester United.
We're talking about driving.
Sorry, Greenwood season. I just got to post that on Twitter. I don't get to post it much, but I'm keeping up all season because he might score a bit more. Finally, we've had the new rules for 2021 for F1, or some of the major changes in the regulations. So we'll go through them quickly. We've got revised aerodynamics aimed at improving overtaking and ability of cars to race wheel to wheel, and $170 million cost cap for teams, excluding driver salaries and marketing. Reduction in Grand Prix weekends from 4 days to 3, because they have the drivers like press conferences on the Thursday and obviously the race on the Sunday. So they'll do the drivers' press conference just before practice 1 and 2 on the Friday. Maximum of 25 races per season. Limits on the number of car upgrades teams can introduce, and more standard parts. 18-inch wheels and lower profile tyres. First thoughts, Ramon, on those changes. Is it good for F1 or is it a detriment? Or
Scott, I think you have to just wait to see. I don't know, man. I'm always, anytime they propose changes, it's always like, firstly it's, do you need to? Okay, and then it's like, if you feel like you need to, while you're doing it, you have to wait and see for it to see whether the benefits are going to come for it. I'm 50-50 on it. I mean, some of it, I guess the press conferences is neither here or there. Maybe gives them an extra day to prepare, but I'm 50-50 on what the impact will be in terms of seeing productivity during the season and seeing where it's going to
go. Kyle, I know you had some issue. You don't like competition or something like that. You like to see the best just run away and blow the competition out of the water. No. Like when you blew out your transfer budget on FM and buy the whole world. That's your style, innit?
And won.
That's your style, innit?
Ruin
the game.
Look, I'm a guy that believes that if you work hard, even if it means that you're the richest and the most powerful, and you get what you want, you deserve to be rewarded. So Mercedes and Ferrari are at the top for a reason. They've worked hard. They have more money. They utilize it. They deserve to be there. They deserve the successes that come their way. This, new rules that are coming into play benefit, I'd say, 8 of the teams and are detriment to 3 of the other 3 teams. It's like what, 11 teams? So the 8 teams outside of Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes are all going to benefit from this, and them 3 are not benefiting not one bit. There's not one benefit for them
as a team, as
a team, not as the races. The races, they may thrive off of the back of more competition, a tighter pack, more to do, more challenging. That's fine, but as for the team, there's actually, to be fair, there is one benefit. They might get more profits because now their spending is reduced, so they might get more profits. That's about it. But apart from that, it doesn't benefit them. So the way I look at it is I don't look at it as a set of rule changes. I look at it as they're handing out penalties for being good, for being the best, for dominating. And the penalties is handed out so it slows them down and allows the chasing pack to catch up. But for me, if that's what your aim is, because I spoke to my uncle back. My uncle's a massive F1 fan. He's been watching it for like 20 plus years. Like he's got so much knowledge of F1. And he was saying that they're only doing this because the racers, the teams, the people in charge, they want it to be more challenging. When you look, when you go down the spectrum, like F2, and you got Formula E and all of that, all of the cars, design-wise and performance-wise, are very close together. It's kind of like when you go with your friends and you go go-karting, like you said.
Well, obviously, I'm usually far ahead of everyone.
Yeah,
about to get locked.
Yeah, they're all on a similar performance level, and it's usually the best thrive in the conditions. You see the best at the front. On more days than not. Obviously, they're allowed to have their off days, but it's usually
making excuses for yourself, Carl.
No, what are you talking about? Off days. I don't have off days.
Oh, sorry. Continue. I must have got mixed up.
He must have. And so I'm thinking. So I'm saying, if that's what their goal is, their aim is to make it more competitive. Because when you look at it, reducing their spend means that they can only spend so much. Putting a cap on how much upgrades they can have in a season, so that means everyone's limited to the same number of upgrades. So you have to be careful on what you do and how many upgrades you or where you choose to upgrade. And the change in lower profile tyres means that every car is going to be a lot closer in terms of grip level, because the higher profile tyres, the better manufacturers, the better teams like Mercedes and Ferrari, they're able to utilize the high profile tires more to get more grip out of them. Whereas the lower teams, they're not that advanced, so they don't not have that technology or knowledge in how to do that. So lower profile tires means that grip going around the track, being able to spend a certain amount of money, same amount of upgrades, the cars are going to be very similar. For me personally, if that's what you was aiming for, why not design a car and just give to the teams? I'm not saying make a car for them, but you give
This
them.
is what your car should
You give them
look
a blueprint. You give them a blueprint, and you say, everyone, this is what you're working with. This is your car. This is the standard of the car that you're gonna have at the start of the season. You have X amount of upgrade, X amount of money. So they're giving it, say 5 months before the start of the season starts, and they've got all that time to work on the car, choose where they're going to spend their 170 million and their number of upgrades, get drivers in there to test it and say, well, I feel the car needs this, because each driver will feedback different. You know, obviously Hamilton might deliver the best news to Mercedes because he's the best racer on the circuit. You say, well, the car definitely needs this and it definitely needs that, and that will separate the best from the rest. That's the direction that it should go. But for me, this way, it just was like they're penalising everyone. Well, I say everyone, just the
top three. For me, it's a. I understand what you're saying, but the way I look at it, first and foremost, there is two ways. There's two ways to look at it, because I'm thinking like let's say I was a Mercedes fan or something like that, and I'm like, oh, but now they're gonna make it much harder for us to win. I'm not a Mercedes fan. I'm a Hamilton fan. I support drivers more than I do constructors. If that driver, whatever construct he happens to be at, then obviously I want him to do well. Now, for me, Hamilton is the best driver on the circuit anyway. So I would love him to win all 20 races and blow him out of the water. But I also want to see good competitive racing. And for me, that's probably the most important thing when it comes to F1, because especially in recent years, F1 has been criticised a lot for being somewhat of a procession. You finish on pole and you win the race because no one can follow behind you, because tyre degradation in the dirty air, can't get the downforce, etc., etc. And it becomes somewhat of a procession, and you only get a jump in the pit stops, which has also even changed itself, because we used to get the refueling at the pit stop. Which
use the DRS zone.
But all of that is artificial means of overtaking. Now, obviously, the DRS is still going to be available, but in some tracks, there's only like one DRS zone, and you can't follow around for the whole lap, and you can get close to the DRS, but you're not close enough to overtake, and it's a bit of and he's like, well, I have to fall back now because my tyres are getting dirty, and let's try and get them on the pit stop. And that becomes a lot of the races overtaking in the pit lane. And that's not real overtaking, it's artificial, it's very strategic. So you have to count on the teams for that, not the driving ability. So I am for, I'm not say all for, but I'm for anything that's going to make the sport as a whole better. So definitely when it comes to the design of the car, having more standardized parts, standardized designs, and less modifications, I'm all for that. The cost cap, I understand that for me is a very much a penalty you're giving to those who, as you said, have earned their way to the top. They ain't stole no money, as far as I'm aware. They ain't, there ain't no drug money that's funding the teams. I'm gonna say something about the Venezuelan now, who was in F1 for a very long time, but I won't go any further. But I think that's probably the only thing I would say is a penalty. Changing the rules to make it more competitive on a manufacturing basis, I think it's I don't think it contradicts or even penalises anyone, because this is the sport you've gone into. They've always had rules regarding what you can and can't do to your car. They're just making it a bit tighter. Now, before, there was unlimited pretty much spending you could do. And I think if you are at the top and you're earning more money, why can't you spend that? What's the point? And you end up just, you're winning for the sake of promotion. Like, just saying we are the best, but if I'm earning X amount of money, why can't I spend it? What am I going to do with it? You can spend it on, yes, marketing, you can pay the drivers more, but that itself is not going to improve the spectacle that you're seeing. So I think that alone is probably a penalty. FFP, for example, is in football, but that's particular to do with like a percentage of your revenue, making sure clubs are, self-sufficient. As long as these teams are self-sufficient, then I don't think you should cap how much they can spend. But as far as the rest of the rule goes, I'm all for it, because at the moment F1 is probably split in about 3 or 4 sections. You got Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, and even the Red Bull is Verstappen. If Verstappen was to leave Red Bull, they're not competing the same way. Then you've got, a middle pack of McLaren, was the Alfa Romeo, which used to be Force India. Is that correct? No, it's not. What used to be Force India? Wherever Perez is. The pink one. Damn it, I can't remember.
Saints.
No, that's McLaren. Sainz, Norris. Alfa Romeo is Raikkonen and Giovinazzi. But the old Force India, I can't remember their name now. Perez. Well, don't even get me started on Stroll. But there's a middle pack of teams. Renault with Hulkenberg and Ricciardo.
And Gosling.
Toro Rosso, they're probably in the back end of the middle pack. But then you got the bottom, which is there. The Toro Rosso, the Alfa Romeo, and obviously the Williams. So it's really split in different sections that I think at different stages of the race it might be a bit exciting, but people are fighting over positions that don't mean nothing. They're just for pride more than anything else. And I think bringing these things in, I hope with any other new regulations that come in 2021, that it can bring everything more competitive and exciting for us, the viewers. And for me, the most important thing is that the drivers, whether the drivers and the constructors are happy, and if they're happy with it, the people that are delivering it, then not who are we to complain, but if they're happy with it, then I don't see it as a massive issue. If they're completely against it, then you say, well,
No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, but if it turns out that all 20 men are all fighting for the victory on the last lap, I mean.
I mean, man.
Yeah, but this is the.
I'll be cool though, because I watch.
Kibitzer from nowhere.
Because I watch MotoGP as well, right? With like Rossi and them, man, right? And but it's been like that for years, like him, Rafa Marquez, and all them guys. But they are literally the best riders on the circuit. But all the bikes are pretty much in close quarters in terms of performance-wise, and on any day, any man can win. Any man can win.
Yeah,
you always tip Rossi or Rafa Marquez to win the title because they're the best. But yeah, and I guess I wouldn't mind that, but throwing penalties like cost cap, man, is not the way to do it. It honestly isn't. Just give them more, like you said, a more standard car.
As we step into the, are you going to say something?
No. No. The only thing I was going to say is that I guess.
So yes, you were going to.
It doesn't really matter, innit? But I'm gonna say it, innit? It's all about if buts and maybes, innit? We may come next year and the same thing could happen. We could still see the same amount of drivers still dominating the circuit.
We could.
And it is gonna potentially make it more exciting. And I think, as you said, a lot of people are maybe even turning away from F1 because it's so predictable now, or not as exciting as it used to be in terms of races, and people want to see more incidents and stuff like that. But I think, as I said, we wait to see it. We may be sitting here talking about another set of rules next year, which could change the whole face of F1 and not really end impact in terms of what we actually view and see on the day-to-day and the race thing. So,